Good morning, my name's Keith McDonald. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Southwest Sydney Primary Health Network, and I'd like to welcome you today to our 2017 Women's Health Conference. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the Cabra clan of the Darug Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay respect to the elders past and present. And of course warmly welcome everyone who identifies as an Indigenous Australian to today's meeting. Today's conference represents a sentinel event, one of the sentinel events of our quite busy CPD calendar, which we host each year. And it represents one of over 70 educational events that we deliver each year here in southwestern Sydney. And that's no small feat. It's a major part of our major strategy on our behalf in terms of developing the workforce in primary care in this region. And on your agenda today, you've got many excellent speakers covering a range of quite interesting topics, which I hope you'll enjoy. And it's certainly a credit to our team, and in particular our Women's Health Working Party who's helped pull this together. I'll give them a bit of a plug if I could. It's chaired by Dr. Annette Wegerhoff, and also participants include Dr. Pauline Hector, Dr. Fiona McIntosh, Dr. Susan Sunwoo, Dr. Nicole Hall, Philippa Kearney, Tracy Jedowiski, and Cheryl Jones. You've got two facilitators today, two local GPs. In the morning session, you have Fiona McIntosh, who's a GP from Mossvale, and this afternoon you'll have Dr. Susan Sunwoo, who's a GP from Bankstown. I hope you enjoy the day. I hope you get a lot of benefit out of it, and look forward to seeing you at our next CPD event. So on that note, I'll hand you over to Fiona McIntosh.
Thank you, Keith. Welcome everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's meeting as well. I would like to take a moment just to thank our sponsors. We have City Fertility, the Bankstown Lidcombe Medical Imaging, and Bayer for their support for today's meeting. And anyone with questions after the presentations today, there will be some microphones. Cheryl, Hayley, Sheila will be able to pass them around. So if you can just indicate before your questions, we'll be able to pass those microphones to you. The first presentation today is on the use of information technology to facilitate care. I would like to introduce you to Ben Neville. Ben is a registered psychologist. Ben has worked as a psychologist for over 10 years, and for the past 2 years has been manager of Health Pathways Southwestern Sydney, an online resource for general practice. Welcome, Ben.
Okay, well, my name is Ben Neville. I'm the Health Pathways Manager. Some of you may have seen me from coming around to doing practice visits about Health Pathways. Some of you may have seen information about Health Pathways in the PHN newsletters and other CPD talks as well. Interestingly enough, my goal for this presentation is I'm not actually going to demonstrate Health Pathways at all. Sometimes there'll be some screenshots, but otherwise this is all about other forms of technology. Now, there isn't a handout for this presentation, and that's because all of the apps that I talk about, all of the websites that I talk about, you can find them on Health Pathways. The easiest place to go is actually to the useful apps section of Health Pathways, and that's where you can go and download these onto your either Android or iOS devices. There is one app available for a Windows phone for the one person in Australia that owns a Windows phone. Otherwise you'll have to use iOS or Android. Now, during this presentation, it's going to be interactive. We have Cheryl here, who has access to one of our PHN iPads, and Cheryl's going to be demonstrating some of the apps with volunteers from the audience. Whoever volunteers does get a prize. It's not a great prize, but it is a prize, and you'll also probably get clapping and adulation from your colleagues as well. So today we're going to look at IT resources for clinicians, IT resources for patients as well. And we're also going to look at what are the future ITs. As I said, we're going to have some case studies, and that's where you'll have that opportunity. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was My Health Record. So My Health Record is a formerly PCEHR. I'm sure everyone here has heard of it. I'm sure everyone has had a PSO coming out using PenCat, trying to install it and get them accessed onto your service. It's an electronic record system that allows patients to give access to different clinicians to view their clinical information or certain select portions of their clinical information, as well as the LHD. The information that is able to be shared includes health summaries, transfer of care summaries, which is the new version of a discharge summary. We don't call them discharge summaries anymore, they're called transfer of care. Referral letters and some test results. A couple of other services now are also linking to My Health Record as well. So Health Direct, which controls one of the after-hours GP lines, and also controls pregnancy, birth and beyond, and Mind Health Connect, which has call centres. They will log summaries of their conversations with those patients and put them onto My Health Record. So when you come into the practice on the Monday morning, you will see that your patient called one of their services. New South Wales Ambulance is doing the same thing. So you will see that an ambulance was called to their house, and there's now a new My Health Summary event that's been put onto there. At present, My Health Record has been very slow in its uptake, and that's because up until now it's been an opt-in system. And generally when you have Sonic as an opt-in system, a lot of people say no. They did do some trials at a couple of different sites where they looked at an opt-out system, and that was highly successful. So as of next year, mid-2018, I think they're looking around June or July, this will now become an opt-out system. The expectation is once it becomes an opt-out system, this will then become far more used by the community, and therefore far more relevant for GPs in primary care as well to be accessing this system and using this system as a useful resource. Some of the other changes that are going to be coming to My Health Records is images for certain types of pathology and investigations will be put onto the site as well, so you'll be able to access those imaging. And they're hoping to aim for real-time update capabilities. At the moment, there's about a 12 to 24-hour lag, but they're hoping to get that to be down to just a few minutes with each time someone makes an update. So let's look at clinical guidance. The first one that I'm going to recommend here, of course, is Health Pathways. Health Pathways is an online clinical and referral information portal for any health professional within southwestern Sydney, but really focused on GPs in particular. It's to be used at the point of care, and it provides easy to navigate information on managing clinical presentations, as well as how to refer into southwestern Sydney Local Health District. We have 7 local GPs that work for our program. One of them is here today and will be presenting later on today, and they work with the local hospital specialists to develop the content. Now we have over 320 localised pathways on the site now. Still about 500 we're working on, but there's quite a good body of localised content for you to be using. Health Pathways provides links through to the RACGP guidelines, but you can also access them through RACGP.something that I didn't actually look up. MPS Medicine Wise is a very useful resource which is free, as opposed to MIMS where you have to have your membership for that and pay a registration fee. We also link to a number of different association guidelines, COPDX, ADIPS, RANSCOG, all sorts of ones through the site as well, but again you can find those online. And we also have an app that I would recommend for you to have a look at, which is actually the Royal Children's Hospital Melbourne Clinical Practice Guidelines. So this includes every policy and procedural guideline that they have at the Royal Children's Hospital Melbourne, and they update these quite regularly. So every time you access the app, I updated this on Friday to make sure you wouldn't get a little pop-up, but it will let you know if any of those guidelines have changed. So very useful procedural guidelines if you're working with paediatric populations, which I'm assuming most of you will be if you're in private practice. Now in terms of CPD, Up to Date and New England Journal of Medicine both have an app that will give you regular notifications of new articles that have come up and new clinical information and bits of research to come up. So you can access those. You do require to have an account with either Up to Date or New England Journal of Medicine. So we're not going to necessarily demonstrate apart from show this is what's available at the moment in NEJM. If you were to log in, you can then access those articles. At the moment, you've got to purchase them individually because we don't have a login for that. Now, you also may have noticed when you walked in here, there's a lovely gentleman at the back who has a video camera. We are videotaping this whole day today, So if anyone has some concerns with being videotaped, could you please let either myself or any of the PHN staff know, because we'll need to make sure we edit out any of your specific questions that get made. I've got some water, isn't that nice of them? But what we've done in the PHN, and we've been doing this for the past year now, is we're starting to select certain pieces, certain CPD events, and we're recording the audio from those events. And then based on those recordings, we're then taking the slides from that event and we're putting the two together and we're turning them into a CPD video. These CPD videos are being hosted on the Health Pathways website for you to access. So I'm just going to jump ahead and just give a very brief demonstration of what they look like. And we're not going to watch the whole thing. It goes for an hour and 20. It is appealing because it means I don't have to talk anymore and I can just sit down, but it probably wouldn't be the best use of your time. This is a CPD event which was around mental health and pregnancy that was done a few months ago. So if I just jump ahead and press play. Essentially, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the slides from that CPD event, and you're going to hear the audio from the presenter. You will hear clinking in the background. These are live recordings from events that occur while people are getting dinner and at a restaurant. Now, the purpose of having these CPD events online for you is that if you can't get to the CPD event, it's not in your region, or it's on a night that you couldn't attend, you can still access these by going to Health Pathways and clicking through onto those links. If you have gone to that event and it was really useful, but you can't remember something that happened or what the speakers spoke about, you can go online and review that content yourself. On the site, you will also find an evaluation form, similar to the evaluation form you have for today. If you fill that out and submit that to the PHN, they will provide you with a certificate of attendance, so you can still count it towards your CPD points. You have to log that yourself. If you come to the face-to-face event, the PHN will log it for you. So for palliative care, Decision Assist has an excellent app for assisting clinicians to complete an advanced care plan. There is a very strong promotion at the moment across the district, across the LHD, for advanced care planning to be done by primary care and very early on in the piece, not necessarily leaving it until those sort of very intimate later stages of life. And so Decision Assist created an app called PalliAged, which we have on the screen, and this is going to be our first case study using this app to also look at clinical management of a terminally ill patient. So do we have a volunteer, someone who wants to come up and with Cheryl have a play with the app and answer a question in a case study?
Come on.
Anybody? Oh, we've got someone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So your case study, very simple. You have a terminally ill patient who is dying at home. You receive a call from the daughter of the patient, the carer, who is upset at the horrible noises coming from her mother, and it's becoming very distressing for her and the family. What would you prescribe to manage the excessive secretions? Now you can answer this question without using the app if you think you know the answer, or you can use the app and find the answer that way. I'd suggest go with option 2. The point is to use the app and not just know the answer.
Okay, dying at home. Do we start with the dying at home first? Or
So we can go to prescribing guidance, nice and simply.
okay.
So
Okay, so touching it. And then we'll do it. It'll come up on the screen, isn't it?
yep, it's up on the screen. Everyone can see what you're doing, so don't press the wrong buttons. And so here we go to excessive secretions, and very simply, there it is on the top of the screen, which is, you can pronounce it because I'm terrible at pronouncing it, that one. Good. I'm a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, so I don't understand all the Latin terms. If you are wanting to find this information very quickly, if we were to press on the top 3 lines just in the corner there, it also up inside, which automatically goes to the prescribing information as well. So you can just quickly scroll through that, find the prescribing information that you require, click on that and go through to it. If you also wanted to find the answer, of course, that answer is on Health Pathways. Our whole palliative care section has been localised as well, but the app is probably another option for you. So can we give a round of applause for our first volunteer? Thank you. Before you go, you do get a prize. you get an apple and a chocolate. So we promote a healthy lifestyle. You have to eat the apple before the chocolate. The other thing that I'd like to mention around palliative care is the ambulance service care plans. You would have seen or heard possibly about the palliative care plans that are being put out by the New South Wales Ambulance Service. They are being strongly encouraged for you to use. There's a couple of things to remember about those plans. The first thing is when you submit those plans to New South Wales Ambulance, that goes onto a database. Excuse me. On that database, it records that there is a care plan attached to that address. It does not tell them who has the care plan at that address, simply there's one there. So when the ambulance officer goes there, that's the sum total of information they have. So it's really important that you encourage your patients, if they have one of those ambulance care plans, to have it somewhere easily accessible. Put it on the fridge. So when the ambulance comes, they're able to have a look at that and follow the prescribing guidance that's been written into that plan or the resuscitation guidance that's written in that plan. In addition, any time you change that plan, it has to then be updated and sent through, and they need to have the most recent copy of that plan available. So that's very important, and some of the information we've gotten from the New South Wales Ambulance Service. So patient information. Quite often GPs will provide patients with information about their diagnosis or the tests they are going for. Health Pathways provides a list of that patient information. Every clinical page on the site will have a patient information section down the bottom. But in June, we decided to try and make this a little bit simpler and a little bit easier for GPs as well. So we've now created a patient version of Health Pathways. So on the image to the left and the right, not on the main screen, you will see on the left the patient information drop down from gestational diabetes on Health Pathways. There you can see links to numerous different resources, including English and translated resources as well. You'll also notice at the top, the very first one listed has a little icon, and we'll talk about that in a minute because that's one of our special fact sheets. What you'll see on the right-hand side is the patient version. So in the patient version of Health Pathways, they can actually just go there and get the information themselves. So as a GP, instead of having to print that information and give it to them, so for instance, gestational diabetes and diet is a 27-page document. You may not want to print 27 pages for your patient. You simply write gestational diabetes on one of these little pads. Each one will have a pad in your folder. Simply rip it off, hand it to them. They can go home, look up the website, download the information themselves. So it's one of the ways we're trying to make it easier for primary care providers to provide that information across. Photography. More and more there's encouragement of using digital photography as part of your clinical practice. It's recommended that for victims of domestic violence, for victims of assault, that digital photography of injuries are created and kept in case they're required at a later time. At the moment, the local health district is organising a new dermatology clinic. So therefore you can simply take photos of patient moles and send them through, and they'll be able to review those and provide a response back. That's going to make it a lot easier for you in terms of having to refer patients to a clinic. Now you can simply send the referral through to the teledermatology clinic and get a response back, usually within 24 to 48 hours. Wound Care also runs some photography assessments and advice as well for certain types of ulcers and non-healing wounds. So to actually take digital photography, there's a certain number of rules and guidelines that you have to follow about how you take those photos, and then also how you save them within the patient file. If you're not exactly sure how to do that, we've got a Health Pathway on that as well. So all you need to do is simply go to Health Pathways, do a search for photograph or photo, and it'll take you to the page that you need to go to. Point of care, what are some of the different things that we've got for point of care? Well, of course, we've got Health Pathways. Health Pathways is a website, an online information portal designed to be used at the point of care. I think that's the 12th reference to Health Pathways so far. Another one we've got is also the HeadCheck app. So the HeadCheck app was actually developed not for clinicians, it was developed for sporting coaches, referees and parents for children who may have experienced a suspected concussion during a sporting match. So once Cheryl agrees. It uses a very simple decision matrix system of yes, no as you go through, and then based on what you click on that, it will give you guidance around how to manage that suspected concussion as well. So it's quite useful. It's simplistic, but if you're wanting something as a quick screener, again, it's quite useful to have there for you. The next one we're going to talk about is eye contraception. And for eye contraception, we're going to need another volunteer. Anyone?
You've got something better than an apple.
There's a chocolate, and it's a Lindt chocolate.
Come on. Come on. Oh, got a few.
We've got a few. Okay, so you two have put your hands up for the next ones. Okay, so we're going to open up eye contraception. Eye contraception is a really useful app for identifying different contraception options for patients, and it will look at contraindications based on clinical presentation, and it will also then look at providing the levels of efficacy. So our case study is we have an 18-year-old female has been diagnosed with chlamydia. Part of your discussion is around contraception.
Got a different one.
You've got a different one.
No, that's the right one.
Okay.
Yep, so we need to change her to 18 years old.
Okay.
Yep. She weighs 77 kilos and 158 centimetres tall. She is currently a smoker and was diagnosed with depression a year ago. So what contraceptive options are available for this
Getting
patient?
too fast.
You're
Wait, wait.
sorry.
So no children?
Not postpartum.
We'll just ignore that one.
Ignore that one.
Yeah, just ignore that one. So she smokes about 12 cigarettes a day. So she is 77 kilos and 158 centimetres tall. So she is obese. Okay, and then she also has depression, so we can, and chlamydia. So we hit conditions, and this will bring up a whole range of clinicians. Now, for this one here, if we scroll down a little bit, we will get to, a little bit further down, depression, yep. So yes, and a little bit further down, and STIs. And it is a current STI, so the top option. And then hit back to conditions on the left there. So now we've got all the data for our patient in there. So if we hit methods, it's going to let us know what methods are available. So just ignore that for now. So here we can see in the IUD we've got a green and a red flag. So if we were just to click on the IUD, what it talks about is that there is a red section here for STIs. And the information, if you were to read that,
Do we have to do this in front of the patient? We have to bring the hand on the computer and say, wait. No, student, wait, I have to check. What's this? This is not professional. I don't think I'm going to do this at all.
so you may choose to use it, you may not choose to use it. Each of the apps here are optional. They're not necessarily saying they're mandatory.
Melbourne, the guidelines on Royal College are amazing. I just tell mom, can I check Royal College of Melbourne or Children's Hospital?
Yep.
They actually love that. Because you're being updating, you're showing you're interested in doing the best for the patient. I don't know, I've never had any trouble to open that app and show the patient.
Okay. So different opinions around this. The red flag here will indicate that if you are inserting an IUD for someone who has an active STI, the research shows that there's actually no further increases of PID, but it's up to you as to whether or not you wish to possibly delay until the chlamydia has been cleared in that process. So thank you very much. Round of applause. Cheryl can get you your prizes. And a chocolate.
And the chocolate.
So next one, the next one we're going to use here is Calculate QX, which was recommended actually by one of the GPs in our area. So we had a look at the app and then we decided to add it to the site. So the next volunteer, there was two. Come on up. Two chocolates. I only bought one box from Lindt, so I don't know how many's in there. So our case study here is you have just received test results confirming your patient is pregnant. Her last known menstrual period was 2 September. She weighs 72 kilos and is 153 centimetres tall. What is her due date by LMP and what is her BMI? Now a lot of these calculators you may have within your practice software, but quite possibly you've gone on a home visit where you don't have access to your practice software. Nice simple calculators, and there's hundreds of calculators here. So the first one we look under is obstetrics.
Thank you. Done.
So I'm going to choose due date by LMP. So we go, there's today's date, so we say proceed down the bottom. And now we put in the date, which is 2 September,
2nd of September.
was her last menstrual period. Yep, and then hit that one. So her due date is June 9th, 2018. And so we now hit back. We go right to the top and have a look at the general calculators. Yep, and then just choose BMI, either one. So with this app here, when you're doing weight, are we doing weight at the moment? It's 72 kilos. And then next. And then this is height in meters, so it's 1.53. I've done 153 before and it said that doesn't make sense for a human. And so here again, we can see her BMI and her BMI category as well. So just a nice simple range of calculators. There's about 100 calculators on Calculate QX that you could use, which is why I was probably recommended by the patient.
Creatinine calculator on
You pardon?
it? Has it got a creatinine calculator on it?
I don't know if it's got a creatinine calculator on it.
Creatinine clearance?
It may. So during the breaks, we will have 2 iPads and an iPhone available. So if anyone wants to come up and play with the apps, fine. If it's got a creatinine ratio calculator on it, then please feel free to do. I do have Dr. Lay over there nodding, so maybe it means it does have a creatinine ratio on it.
I use it when it's got the Cochrane call. You just type in Cochrane call.
So it's got Cochrane something on it. So thank you, and we have an endorsement, which is good.
That's also on the medical software, usually.
Yes, so yes, it is on the medical software, but if you're doing a home visit, you may not have access to medical software. So in terms of prescribing, of course, Health Pathways has information about prescribing as well. Hep Eye Chart is a really useful app that's now come out from the UK, and it's designed to be looking at any drug interactions for patients who are currently undergoing Hep C treatment. So you just simply type in which Hep C treatment regime they're having, and then also what medications they're on, and it'll identify those interactions for you. Who here is currently doing Hep C treatments for their patients? A couple of hands. Strongly encourage you to do so. With the new ones like Eclusa, which is a pan-genotypic treatment regime, it's become very simple, 95% effectiveness after 12 weeks, very minimal side effects. We did just put up a red flag on our Hep C treatment pathway yesterday, and that is around someone who has a previous diagnosis of Hep B. Some of the Hep C treatments have caused a Hep B resurgence, and in America there's been 24 cases listed with 2 fatalities and 1 liver transplant required. So the recommendation is if you do your serology before and it has any Hep B antibodies, they need to have a high level of monitoring and possibly involvement with specialist care. So just because it's come out, I thought I'd tell you that. Doctor's Bag app, next person. Everyone's heard of the Doctor's Bag. It's your doctor's bag. So they decided to make an app for the Doctor's Bag as well, and that's just to help you with those prescribing requirements as well. So our case study is a 4-year-old child is having an acute dystonic reaction and requires benzotropine. So it's not under anaphylaxis, it's in Doctor's Bag. So we choose benzotropine and acute dystonic reactions, and they're 4 years old, so they're over 3, and they weigh 27 kilos. So we do know it's 400 micrograms per kilo, if I remember looking at the app before, but instead I can just simply do that, and I know I have to give 540 micrograms. So the idea is this app provides that prescribing calculator for everything in your doctor's bag, but nothing in addition to that. Thank you. That was a really easy one. She only deserves an apple. No, she can get a chocolate too.
What does that mean?
Okay. The opioid calculator app that we have as well was developed by the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Anaesthesiologists, and it simply provides a calculation of total morphine load based on all the different medications they may be on, both prescription and over the counter. So given our timeframes, we might just skip that one, Cheryl, if that's okay. We don't have a case study for that. You've got the IMS app, but again, you need a requirement. You've got Calculate QX, which has a number of different prescribing calculators as well. But I just want to open Medscape now. Medscape is quite a useful app. Who's going to be the next volunteer? This is an extra fun one. I'm willing to give 2 chocolates for this one because it's a bit more complex. David ran out of the room. I had a go-to person at the back to volunteer and he's run away. Anyone else?
There must be someone. Come forward.
Yep,
Come on. It's worth the chocolate. Up to Rico.
2 chocolates.
Sorry, forgot about that.
Okay, so you have a 49-year-old woman who is new to the area and new to your practice, and she's recently reported experiencing depression for the past 3 months. I'm a psychologist, I went mental health for this one. You're considering prescribing Lexapro. However, she mentions that her previous doctor gave her these pills to help her with her migraines, but she can't remember the name of them. And I'm sure you have lots of patients who come in and tell you they take medication, but they can't remember the name of it in there. But she does tell you that these tablets are yellow. They are a tablet, not a capsule. They're round, and they don't have one of those mark things in the middle so you can cut it in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the pill identifier. We're going to select shape, round, colour, yellow, it's a tablet, and no scoring. And then you're going to show the app to your patient once it loads. And here we are relying slightly on an internet connection. So hopefully it will come up relatively soon. And I can have a look at this as they come up. It's none of them. No, not them. This is my 49-year-old woman voice. It's not very good. Scroll a little bit further on. Let's just see.
Is this country specific?
It's meant to be
I think
country.
this is American.
The original would be American.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the
so this
things
may
on
not.
here are not available in Australia.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll have to go back to the GP that recommended this one. Not to judge at all. But that's the one that I'm on. I'm on this one here, the one with the V and the 2102. So I'm on amitriptyline. That's my medication that I've got. So now what I can do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my drug interaction checker. And here I can enter in up the top, Lexapro. You can just, select it. And I can choose amitriptyline. I'm allowed, every time I do it I spell it incorrectly. And here I can see that there is an interaction found, given that they're both antidepressants. So on that I can open it up and see what that interaction is. So it's very similar to the good old-fashioned MIMS, and if you do have online MIMS, you do have the Australian version of this, but again, you need to have a paid account with MIMS. This you can access for free, although if it's American it may not be as useful. So thank you very much, 2 chocolates for that one.
And an apple.
And an apple. Still got to have the apple first. And so for radiology, and I'll just check in a second how I'm going for time. This has been recommended from actually our LHD, from the head of radiology for the LHD, Dr. Peter Lynn, and that is Diagnostic Imaging Pathways. It's a website that has been set up by WA Health, and it is a very, very brilliant resource for imaging. It includes online CPD components as well as management pathways. They developed 2 apps as a result of this. One of those apps is for adults and one of those apps is this one, DIP for Kids, which is for children. The adult one at the moment is currently being removed because they're updating it. So this is our final role play, or our final time to get someone up. So if you really wanted to come, this is your last opportunity.
There's more chocolates.
I have 4 chocolates left, so this one's worth 2, and then more for me on the way home. Does anyone want to come up for the final? I was expecting David. He's back. He's running up. Thank you. He was my go-to emergency person. The benefit of being a husband to one of my workers.
Thanks, David.
So we have a 9-year-old boy presenting with paranasal sinus pathology. This is the 3rd occurrence this year for the child. He does not complain of headaches, and there is no evidence of swelling or bleeding. Observations of the child indicates the concern is of paranasal sinus origin. So what is the appropriate action? Continue. And if radiology is recommended, what would it be? So there's no red flags? So no? No. We know that it's of paranasal origin, so we hit no. Oh. This is the 3rd occurrence. We're going to say it's chronic. And it's an older child. So here it tells you potentially what you're doing is making an ENT referral, but if you were to do some imaging, CT, The red little radiation things will also tell you how much radiation is involved for this specific CT that you'll be using for this child, and then whether or not you'd be going to an MRI afterwards. So thank you.
Right.
That was easy, wasn't it? So in terms of referral points, Health Pathways provides that information about all how to refer into the local health district if you're making any public referrals, including the contact numbers, the criteria, clinic times, clinic locations, specialists involved, and the referral processes. What we've also done is if there's been any referral forms from the hospital that we've come up against during our localisation process, we would then have that turned into a practice software template that you can import into Best Practice or Medical Director to make it easy for you to make those referrals. So I'm just noticing time. I'm going to go flying through this. So in terms of health information, I've already mentioned that we do have Health Resource Directory, which is the patient version of Health Pathways. There's also Your Health, Your Time, Your Way. Your Health, Your Time, Your Way is a website run by the PHN, which is about health empowerment. It has topics such as cancer screening, immunisation and after-hours care at the moment, but soon it will cover all of the PHN priorities. But I mentioned before that our patient site, healthresourcedirectory.org.au, has fact sheets, and this is one of the things we're developing. This is one of our fact sheets, one we're particularly proud of, called One for Suicidal Thoughts. So the idea is that we take the clinical information that is on Health Pathways, and then we have hired a technical writing company to turn that information into a consumer version of that clinical guidance. So it just flips it around. So if the clinical pathway had information about what would be the appropriate management structure, that becomes what will my GP do. If it talks about what to encourage your patient to do, that becomes what can I do in the pathways. And then in addition, it will have what supports are available, which has the information and local services and crisis places to go. So for this one in particular, you'll notice the little squares that have dotted lines around them. The idea is that your patient can actually cut that out and put it in their wallet. It's got a keepsafe card. It has all the numbers for all the crisis hotlines they could be calling, as well as you can write down their support person and their phone number and any recommendations you've got as well. These fact sheets will be available in English, Arabic, Vietnamese and simplified Chinese. And in the future, we also hope to have audio translations as well. So if they can't read their native language, you can simply press play at the bottom of the patient information section in Health Pathways, and it will then read aloud these fact sheets to them.
But that my SWS pregnancy doesn't work on my phone anymore.
SWS pregnancy?
I
Okay.
didn't take an audio.
I installed it on Thursday. So for health monitoring, this is about for some people here we have something called telemonitoring, which is meant to go to a really pretty video that talks about how important telemonitoring is, but I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to skip that video if that's okay. So the telemonitoring program provides a specific tablet that patient can take home with them, and they can do those checks every day. There's certain different conditions that it's available for, most of the chronic disease conditions. That will then send that information every day through to III, which is run by Community Health, and summaries are also provided to the GP as well. If anything occurs during those monitoring that indicates that that patient is becoming more unstable, it will then also send a notification to the patient and also to III to say we may need to change management of that patient. So it's currently available in Wollondilly and I think Bankstown, and the idea is that it's going to be rolled out across the entire district. So in terms of local services, we've kind of talked about that before. They can go to the NHSD or Health Resource Directory. In terms of managing medical conditions, New South Wales Asthma has a great app which includes all the videos for the different spaces and correct technique for those. So we'll skip past that one. We also have the Diabetes Australia app that links to resources, calculators, useful recipes, lots of really good information you can recommend for your patients. In terms of medical diagnosis, is there any app out there that can give you a medical diagnosis? No? Hashtag talk to your GP. There is nothing out there that will tell you what you have. If you try Google, it will tell you you have a brain tumour or some form of rare cancer. It'll also tell you that vaccinations are just a conspiracy to Big Pharma. So we don't encourage medical diagnosis via information technology. For medicine management, we have the MPS Medicine Wise app. It's a very useful app. Patients are able to put in reminders of when they have to take their medications. They can tick off that they've done that, and that can also then create a batch Excel file that they can send through to their GP, so you know exactly when they've been having their medication and whether they've skipped any doses as well. For mental health, there's hundreds of mental health apps, so I'm not even going to try and cover them. Instead, if you go to Health Pathways, you can simply download lists of all of the different recommended apps across New South Wales and Australia that you can then simply print off and hand to your patient and say, give these ones a try. Most of these have come from Beacon 2.0, which was a site run by Australian National University, which actually evaluated most of these apps for research efficacy and also user ratings. For mobile phone devices, who's heard of the mobile phone Doppler? You can listen to your baby's heartbeat on your phone. It's beautiful. I downloaded it. I put it to my stomach. I heard my baby. They are not good devices. They are, most of them, very, very questionable quality. There has been a number of instances within Australia and New South Wales where people have used that and they felt very comfortable that their baby was doing well, only to then go on to deliver a stillborn baby. So the recommendation is to not use them. If we were to look at my Samsung has 2 microphones and a cover which is going to impede the microphone's ability. My iPhone has 3 microphones. So there's too much variability there to have them as an effective app. And if I can get a heartbeat, I really wouldn't trust it. In terms of parenting, you may have heard of the Love Talk Sing Replay app. It's an app that was created by the South West Sydney Local Health District, and it provides information around the developmental stages of your child and what they should be expecting and some of the things you can do to encourage their development. Deadly Tots is a Aboriginal specific version of the same app. And then of course we've got Save the Date to Vaccinate, which is just a vaccination reminder app, but still very useful. In terms of pregnancy care, there are hundreds of apps again, so I'm not going to go through all of them. My SWS Pregnancy hopefully should be working. It was working on Thursday when we got it downloaded. Now there are, from the feedback I've gotten, more user-friendly apps out there than My SWS Pregnancy, but I would encourage you to encourage your patients to download it anyway. So even if they only use it once a month and they use Baby Centre every day, the benefit is it has the information for the local services and the local clinics if something goes wrong, so it's on their phone ready to go in case something happens. So even from that perspective, it's a very useful app. Very soon it's planned to be released in multiple languages as well, but that hasn't happened just yet. There is also a trial looking at a My Baby Movements app, but it's still in the trial phase, and so it's not available yet. In terms of sexual health, there's a very useful app called Eve by Glow that patients can use. This tracks their menstrual cycle, it tracks when their contraception is due, it tracks also when they potentially might need to have an STI check, and goes to a whole bunch of different useful women's health apps as well. One of the things it will do is it will remind you when your period's about to start as well, which can be quite useful for younger women who may not necessarily track that as well and may be engaging in casual sex to think, oh, hang on a minute, that should have come 4 days ago. And we've also got the contact tracing website. So if a patient has been diagnosed with an STI, there is a requirement that they contact trace and inform their previous sexual partners. With these 3 websites that we've got here, Better to Know, Let Them Know, and The Drama Down Under, all of these, the patient can put in the phone number or the email address of the person they've had sex with, identify the STI, and it can send either a named or an anonymous notification to that person to say someone you have had sex with has been diagnosed with chlamydia, you should get yourself texted. The final one there, The Drama Down Under, is specifically for men who have sex with men. And in terms of well-being, there's hundreds of apps. Most of your phones have them, so I'm not going to go into those. But we do have Go for Fun. Go for Fun is a program designed to assist children and young people to improve their health. It's a specific week course. They come in, they learn different aspects of cooking, their family's involved in the program, and it is free and available across the district. And we also have gethealthy.newsouthwales.com.au, which provides an online telephone coaching service. They've got a general one, and they also have one specifically for those areas as well. So what's coming up in the future? So first of all, the goal is secure messaging into the LHD. So at the moment, you do have the electronic discharge summaries that can come out via secure messaging, but they haven't got secure messaging in. So at the moment, you still have to fax referrals into the LHD, or you have to post referrals, which is, you know, it was great if it was still 1980, but it's not. So we need to move forward, and they are working on that. across the district. We also have IRAD, which stands for Interactive Real-Time Active Data. At its initial stage, what that means is looking at actually having shared data across your medical systems and the LHD Cerner that is occurring in real time. That's stage one. In the future, that will hopefully move on to e-referral. I'd love e-referral in health pathways. As soon as we can get it, we will have it, because I think it would just, again, make your roles so much easier. Final thing to talk about is in your packs today, you have a competition form, and that competition form is running for today. There are 10 questions for you to answer. All the answers are on health pathways, because obviously I'm promoting me here in this situation. If you complete those 10 questions, submit it into the competition box, which is the silver thing that I'll have outside. By the end of lunch, the first person pulled out that has all 10 correct will win a 250 Event Cinemas gift card. Okay, so that's happening today. To make it easier for you, you will notice on each question there's a bolded word. If you search for that bolded word, it'll pretty much bring up the page that you need to get the answer for that. Okay. If you don't have a phone, I'm surprised, but also we will have a number of laptops and iPads available that you can use in the breaks as well, if you wish to use those to search for those answers. Thank you, and any questions?
We have a roaming mic.
There's a question? I was hoping no.
How much, regarding my health record, transitioning from opt-in to opt-out, how much education, information, and consent procedure are we going to give to the patients?
Is going to go to the patients. Does Keith want to answer this? Otherwise, I can have a stab.
Yes, sorry, the question was how much information are you going to get in the lead up to it?
What do patients know?
Yeah, so we're literally executing an agreement now with the Australian Digital Health Agency to put on people to come out in practices and communicate to the community. It won't just be general practice, but also the specialists and community pharmacies to disseminate information both to the providers and the commission. So it'll be active. So that activity should commence prior to Christmas. But it won't go live, so to speak, until May next year, pending legislative approval, with a view that by Christmas 2018, every patient should have access to a My Health Record, unless they opt out. Did I answer your question? No? So what information are the patients and you going to get prior to that going live?
How much patients know about this opt-in and opt-out?
At this stage, there's only been, from my understanding, there's been 2 trials nationally, one in North Queensland and one in Blue Mountains. The promotion of that activity will literally start once the PHN sign this agreement with the Australian Digital Health Agency. So we're literally looking at that contract to execute now. So that promotion will start before this Christmas to the community. So hopefully they'll be aware of it by the time.
Just watch the space, basically.
That's what we just said, that's right.
Yeah. My guess is there'll be a national campaign. If it's being rolled out across the country as opt-in, my guess is there'd be a national campaign done by Department of Health, but that's just me taking a guess.
No, it's going to be run by us.
For the patients as well? Run by us. Less national, more local.
Big combination.
Big combination. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing your competition entries.